Today we are going to do a grass. Yeah, that's a grass. I already did the outline, so you will not have to watch me making a bunch of dots. And that's the way. Oh, sorry, wrong way. That's a good way it look. That's a male grass, obviously, and here is a female one on the bottom. I suppose you can see it. I can show you anyway. Oh. So that's the way my female grass look like. Oh. If I could, I would show you the background, but that's the best I can do. I cannot zoom out more. Let me see. Yeah. So here is a male one. And of course, I'm going to zoom in to do my thing. Try to focus a little. And at the end, I will try to input the picture of my model. You know, I always work from pictures, so it can show you if I do well. If I don't, I will forget. But of course, I may forget anyway. Yeah, it's been a long time I put a video on YouTube. I figured that it was time to make an effort and do something. So, here we are. Actually, I got a new optic from my microscope. I figure I will try it. You can almost see as much as I can. It's actually not quite true. You know that I kind of like to put a bunch of little dots. Because it helped me. I try to make my line there very small. Not very small actually, very thin. Because I don't want to have too much, too sharp of a contrast sometimes. I can always make the line thicker later on. And usually, yeah, you know, the beak is very dark. There's somewhat of a reflection on the top of it. And that's why I didn't want my line there to be too thick. The bottom of the beak is much darker, of course, because there is no reflection there. Or maybe there is some coming from underneath it, but I think it can be much darker. Just going to put a little white space there, so you can see the opening of the mouth. And I'm going to make it grayer on the bottom, on the top, sorry. And since it's curved, I'm going to try to go from a dark gray close to the mouth to something lighter on the top. Yeah, I forget to do the background there, which is actually convenient. Like that, I will be able to do it later. Okay, the eye of my beast is very dark. It's also spherical, so I'm going to do somewhat the same thing that I did with the beak, which is to make the periphery darker than the center. Basically like you would do if you were drawing some sphere. Just going to leave a little part of light in the middle. It might look very large, but it's actually pretty small. Okay, now I'm going to do the top of the head. Okay, there is that line there. That line is actually darker. So that's what I'm going to do first. And here I got some white there. Don't want it to make too white, and I don't want to make it too small. That's a problem with microscope. Since you see so much, sometimes you make things too small. Okay, try to find a good position. That part here is going to be lighter than here, but I will show you. It's easier to do than to explain sometimes. make my space a little too big, so I'm going to reduce it. As I've been saying in some other video, I do that dot line, whatever you want to call it, to give me some sort of guidance. Otherwise I would have to redo my drawing all the time, which would not be very convenient. So I do something very basic, and then I fix it when I think that I made a mistake to start with. Move that stuff a little, let me focus a little more. Yeah. Sometimes it's difficult to find a good position. I don't know if you can actually hear the tick-tick of my tool tuning the steel. Probably not. Of course, if I was a little more quiet, you might actually hear something, but I don't think it really matters that much. Okay. Well, that line is fairly hard. Problem finding. I know that some people want to accelerate the video, but I don't think it's a good idea because it gives you the impression that the stuff is extremely fast, when in fact it's very slow and kind of boring sometimes. But it's not as boring as it may look, because when you work on a microscope, since everything is so much bigger, you get the impression to go much faster. Now my burn didn't grow horn all of a sudden. There's a tree behind it. So now that I have made my dark spot, I am going to go up. Oh, actually, that thing is going. I didn't realize that at first, but it's actually going farther. Okay, now I can go from my dark line to about the top of the head. The top of the head is much lighter in color in my picture, on my picture, sorry, because of course there is more light on the top than there would be on the side. I want to keep a fairly contrasted um, zone between what I just did, which was very dark, to what I'm doing now, which is much lighter. I always feel like I should use some sandpaper to make my construction, the dot I used to start the work, a little lighter, but then I'm always afraid that it will be so light that I will not see them. Even so, you see them quite a lot when in the microscope. Actually, they are almost invisible with your bare eyes. But I can make it a little darker. I will. I'm just going to finish that part in front of you. Then I will move on to the rest of the head, and I will show you when I do the feather around his neck. It's kind of amusing the way it is. See that line that I did before here? That one, the end of it. I need to make it a little darker. It needs to contrast it. So I'm going to go back. And I'm going to attenuate the contrast by making the rest of the top of the head a little darker. It's actually very much what you would do with pencil in a way, but not quite, because unlike in pencil I cannot just take a rubber and rub it out, or even take my finger and try to attenuate the contrast. In engraving, what is there to stay. It's always very difficult to remove. And when you remove one thing somewhere, you remove so much of what is around. I can do it a little more here, in that corner. I turn my vise all the time because I try to make my dot going in different direction. Like that the engraving is more likely to look even and to have the same tonality when you turn it. Let's see. I think it looks better. Now I'm going to... I know I told you I will do it, finish it on my own, but I'm going to do it a little more anyway. In front of you, I told you that that space here is not quite white, but it's not quite dark either. So do a little of that. And even so, they don't show like much. It's enough to break the light. And once again, it kind of attenuates the contrast. So it appears like a very light gray. Yeah, actually you can see it. Anyway, I think that's all for now. I will kick back to you when I'm getting ready to... Oh, my beak is kind of weird looking. I figure there's space there. This one was kind of weird looking, I think. Yeah, I think it looked better that way. So, as I'll see you later. Here we are again. I'm going to start, I did start a little of the feather here, but what I wanted to show you are the ones which are more directly behind the head and around the neck. I'm going to start with that here. Yeah, you might have think that it was a mistake, but it's not actually. There is some feather which are sticking behind the head of the beast. So that part is pretty simple actually. Just have to make some fairly even line. Now, since I work on picture, the animal is not always as cooperative as I wish him to be. But on the other hand, they don't give the impression of being posing. Do you see something? Ah, yes, you do. Okay, so I'm going to continue with that one. But the next one is a little thicker. And I'm sure that you did realize that I did change tool. I'm using something a little more, a little heavier, a little more aggressive to make this thing dark without having to spend the rest of my life doing it. I know it's a little uneven, but hopefully I will be able to even it out. So that feather is doing something kind of weird. Now I can even it out more conveniently. Actually, the base here need to be a little thicker. More or less like that. I can do a little thing here too. There's some limit how realistic it can be, especially on the proportion. If I was to do acrylic in proportion, you would basically not see any difference because in that size it will be very dark. But I don't want the thing to be completely dark. I want to give the impression of realism. They cannot be completely realistic. Because I might be able to see it with my microscope. But people need to have an idea what I'm doing, even with their bare eyes. See that white line I put between my two dark one, actually way too thick, but I'm not even sure you can see it. Ah, yeah, you can more or less see it. I should make it actually my dark line a little thinner. Between the part of my tool. Okay. And then my dark line a little thinner. So my white line between them are going to actually be visible when people look at it with their bare eyes. It doesn't look bad anyway. Let me try to do something else, like here. Fact is that I cannot see that in a picture. But I know that you got some feather. And the pictures themselves, of course, have limitation. And I can blow them up only so much. Okay, now I'm going to start with this thing here. That one is the edge. So I can actually make it very dark. Of course, you know, feathers are not casted in. What am I doing here? They are not casted in concrete. So there is some hair-like coming out of the feather. But I will deal with that later. That's my tree, which is behind my beast. That part too, the edge of it. So I'm going to make it pretty dark. It's kind of That is a way the feather, creating like a crown around the neck of the bird. This is not just male, or man I should say, in which try to blow their own horn. Bird do it too. Okay, I'm going to do that one. Then I'm going to show you what I want to do in between. Okay, last one, promise. Once again, I will deal with that part later. And actually, I will be careful. Try to leave a space large enough to create the illusion of a reflection. Okay, I don't know, I always say one more, but sometimes I need to do that, otherwise I will not even understand myself what I'm doing. So, let's do it now. Going to start with maybe the first one, why not? So very, very dark feather. I don't know actually the feather all that dark. Maybe just a shadow. It's feather actually more like dark brown, but I think the shadow gives the impression that they are black. I'm speaking about my picture, obviously. So I'm going to try to translate the tone in gray. Of course, dark brown, especially very dark brown, could appear black. That's perfectly acceptable. For a second I was wondering what I was doing. Yeah, the next one is going to try to create a large space now, because I can always reduce it later. But when I will have done a couple of them, you will understand better what I'm doing. Anyway, I think you have understood what I'm doing right now. So, why don't I just continue on my own to do a few more. I thought maybe that video is not going to be overly long. See you then. I am sure that you are dying to see what I am doing, so I figure I should show you a little more. Because it doesn't work anymore. Oh, no. Okay, so I only do two feathers, but I don't really want to have such a high contrast. So I'm going to attenuate it with like that. Going to do a little more the edge. What do you think? Yeah, I think it looked better with a little less contrast. Now I'm going to do the other one. Actually, when you see them side by side, I hope you can see that difference. Okay, focus. Okay. I may actually do it a little darker later, but I want to see the rest of it when it's all done. I mean that part at least. So I will speak to you later, or you can watch it later. Take care. So I am back. And as you can see, sometimes I use a different technique. The one I was doing earlier was with just little dot. And the fact is that it's very slow. And sometimes using line give a very good result. I will still use some dot to give the same texture, but it's it's not going to take as long. And as you can see too, I don't always follow, sorry, my own design. Sometimes I feel like it needs a little more variation. So that's what I will do. I'm going to put another one here. I think it's just too large of a space. I don't know if I got quite enough room to use my, oh yeah, I do. I could have started with that. It's also going to give something very dark. Oh, I made a mistake. It's okay. I was saying, there's nothing carved in stone, especially when it comes to bird and their feather. I'm just going to insert a new feather right here. Like that. That one is going to be just a little bigger. And this one I don't really have the space. So I'm going to go back to my faithful dotting. Oh, I need to focus a little more. Okay. I'm going to try just to see if I can actually do it. Okay, now I'm going to do my dotting thing if I can find my tool. Ah, here it is. Yeah, as you can see here fairly well actually, see the texture here and there is very, very different. But at the end of the day, I will show you on the one which is right about the one I'm doing now. Okay, once again I'm going to attenuate the contrast. Just wish I could find the right position. Okay. Now I'm going to do that one to show you. See? That one here is very different from this one there. It's not just lighter, it's just a very different texture. So I'm going to use my miracle single point tool to alleviate the problem. See? And since I was asked on YouTube, there is no ink on that tool. There is no painting or anything like that. It just gets darker because by doing so I break the light. And by breaking the light, sorry, I create some shadow. And that's why it's dark. Because they are very tiny shadow. But imagine that you're in a crowd. And if you are alone at the end of the day and it's sunny, you will have a very, very long shadow. But imagine that you get thousands of people. Then the shadow, each individual shadow will become indistinguishable. And everything will become dark behind the people. And if you were to imagine that you remove the people and you keep the shadow, even so the sidewalk will be lighted by the sun, it will still be dark because of the projected shadow of the people. Because my people are very tiny and they are very numerous on a very small space. But that's basically what I'm doing. I'm creating shadow. And each little dot is going to capture the light, and because of its shape, it's going to keep it from escaping in the direction of the objective of the microscope, which would be the direction of your eyes if you were looking at it directly. It's basically doing exactly the opposite than a diamond. When you cut a diamond, you're trying to make the ray of light reflect internally. And then you're trying to make that same ray of light escaping directly towards the eyes of the viewer. And that's why the diamond seemed to be so bright. But if you are using the same cutting, not actually the same cutting, but the same technique, you would be actually able to make the diamond look very dark. You just have to direct the ray of light in another direction. Use the same ray of light instead to go toward your eyes, was going towards the outside, where you're not looking. It will, the diamond would look very flat, lifeless. So I'm starting to do that one because that one is a little bigger, and hopefully you will see better. Et voilà. You see the texture now between this and that is very much the same. I know it's not quite equivalent, but that specific feather was much larger, so I didn't want it to make it completely dark. I wanted it to get much darker at the root than at the edge. Okay, I think I abused your patience long enough for now, so I will get back to you. I have been working on that quill, and I basically finish the feathers around the neck, and I wanted to show you the result. Actually, it looks much better when you are looking at it this way. which in a way make more sense since it's closer to the actual size. But let me show you what I did around on the back. See here, I told you there is some hair feather which are sticking out of the main feather, which are here. So instead you try to make it some hair, which would have been way too big anyway, I decided to make like a little cloud around, which I think look quite cool. Anyway, I'm going to start to do something else, and when I will have figured out what I want to do, I will get back to you. Since I did make up my mind, I figure maybe I will show you. That's the curve of the wing, sorry, obviously. And there is some stuff like that. Of course, they are feather. And they are going to go more or less like this. What I was saying about doing the little dot, by doing the little dot like that, give me a better idea where to stop that row of feather. I don't want to make them too dark. But I may have to darken them a little anyway. So they are going down the wing. Actually, that's not the wing, obviously, that is the chest. Yeah, need to be a little darker, especially towards the wing. So that's what I'm going to do now. Now I am going to use a lighter touch to do that. Okay. And then it's go like this. Going to And do something like that. Okay. Something maybe a little heavier. Yeah. You have to make them darker, otherwise you will not differentiate them in this feather from the rest of the shading I do on the chest. Okay. Now I'm going to do something even lighter. I think it's okay like that. What do you think? Yeah. Now I'm going to. What am I going to do? So we want to use the black now. So let me think a second. Yeah, I'm going to do this. Continue with when, and I did or did not, but even if I didn't do it on this video, I did do it on others. As I did mention, I did say that I don't usually try to make a cut out of the perimeter of the animal because I do believe that sometimes it's not very realistic. And an animal is not just black and white on some sort of background. And if I had cut that line here, I will have a black line between what is the grass here and the body of the animal. And you don't actually have that. I mean, you get something which is less well defined, let's say. So basically what your eyes is doing is following that line here, even though the line doesn't exist. Which I think is I find that nicer. And of course, since I'm the one doing the work, I do whatever I want. Got to go for a minute. I'm going to do, or I'm going to start with the feather here. Don't really care for the shape of my feather. Better that way. Actually, going to do a little of that. Pardon. I don't really care for the shape of it. So I'm going to rectify. Going to do the outside first. make it look better. Now I'm going to do that one here. Not done with the first one, but I want to do the second one. And the second one is much longer. Yeah, I know it's not the right one, but I have to do that one before I can finish this one. See? This one actually the darker spot. Should I make them a little bigger? Okay. That one got the same type of thing, so same way I'm going to do feather above. Okay, so I can do this stuff now. Try not to make the spot the same place than the other, because it also helps better define each feather when we are looking at it. Their eyes. Apply that. Oh, it's upside down. The other feather here is a little different. And here I'm going to use my cutting tool. Yeah. Does it go? I'm going to finish them. Okay. Can do the same. I think I'm missing one or two. Yeah. I'm going to turn it off when I fix it. Okay, I did fix. No problem. More or less appropriately. So I can do my feather here. Okay. I don't really know what I got in that hole yet, but hopefully I can go this way. See here, there's a few more feathers which are apparent, and what is there? Oh, okay. And here I got a feather which is coming, which is going to be, if I can find my tool, it's going to come from there. It's going to come like that. Yeah, and yeah, that's a part of the behind of my animal. And here is the beginning of the tail. I can do that. It's going to help me to find out where I will put the rest of my bird. What did I do? Oh, yeah, let's go like that. But maybe you don't need to see all the detail. So I'm going to stop for now and I will get back to you later. Okay, I thought I will give you a little update. And let me show you what I've done so far. Let me focus that a little. Okay. I did start to do the tail, as you can see, and I did do a little feather around there. So I will spend a little time in your company to show you what I'm going to do now and how I'm going to do it. Of course, to do so, I will have to find my tool. Ah, I did find it. Okay. Okay, as you may or may not be able to see, I didn't quite do the same type of shading. Let me show you a little further. See, I left that part here fairly light, and I did make the root of the shading much heavier. Here, on that part, hold on. See that part here are supposed to have some sort of line of white spot into the background. That's why I did it that way. I didn't want it to be too contrasted, because I think when it's too contrasted it can look very cartoonesque. Okay, now here we are. This part there is of course the remnant of the wing, and so that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to do a little work on the base of that thing, because I'm not quite sure what it's supposed to be there. I don't see very well on the picture, so I will make it up. Okay. Actually, I don't really like what I did so far. That part, that thing here, doesn't really belong. So I'm just going to do something. I mean, it's kind of logical that this part will be darker, because the shadow of the feather, which are here, should cover it. So I'm just going to do something like that to kind of melt away my little dot. And there's a shadow going this way. I'm starting with the darkest part, because when I know how dark my shadow is going to be, I can make the surrounding lighter. Of course, if need be, I can always go back and make my shadow darker, but that specific space I don't want it to be so dark, because it's supposed to be much lighter than the surrounding feather, which are right there. So I'm going to make a shadow there. Sometimes it's difficult to find a good position. Okay, I think it's look a shadow. Actually, that part too. Here is also there's a shadow of some sort, and actually it's going. Let me see. It's going more or less that way. I'm going to start light because that part here is supposed to be a little lighter. Actually, let me see. No, yeah, it is supposed to be lighter. So, and I think I need to prolong my feathers there. I think I made them a little short. Let's see what I can do there. Yeah, it should be much longer actually. Slip. I don't know what I was thinking when I was doing that. I don't know. I know, actually I was right. There's another row of feather there. So we respect that. But I'm going to make that one a little longer. Like so. And I'm going to, it's kind of funny because each part doesn't really work individually. They need to work together. So if you get some part really wrong, the thing look very weird. Okay. So now I'm going to, that one. Actually, that one is kind of different. This one here. I'm going to melt this prolongement, which is what I done earlier. So it will not look too weird. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with that one. as I was saying, there is a row of feather here. I won't shed this row at all, because if I do, it's not going to be very distinguishable from the being like something black or whatever color it will be, but it will be very difficult to distinguish that they are actually feather. If I look at my picture once again, I see that there is some more defined feather going there. Here. See that part? Don't quite understand where they are coming from, and I cannot really see it. So I'm just going to pretend that they are going underneath that part here. And it seems that there's several of them. So I'm going to do something like that. Let's see if I can find a right way to do it. And I'm going to add a feather there, two actually. Like so. That will have some sort of consistency. Actually, maybe I can just add one more. Okay. Yeah, I think it's acceptable. Now I'm going to shade this new feather. going to darken the base of my feather. Anyway, I'm sure that you understand what I'm doing now. So I'm just going to do it and I will see you later. I've been working on the tail of my bird, and here's what I've done so far. Sorry. Well, and I'm going to finish it now, and I figure that maybe you would be interested to see how I'm going to do it. So I will start. Okay, I think that's enough for now. I will show you when I am done. Here is what I have been doing, what I have done so far. So I'll be moving along. I'm going to do the back now, and I'm going to start by doing some sort of shading in that area, which is actually covered by the feather which are above. So it kind of makes sense. So that part is going to be a little darker. Um, I'm going to make this much darker, otherwise they are just going to disappear in the shadow. That's all I have to say. So I'm going to zoom in and start working. I'm thinking, yeah, I'm going to do that because I don't want my dark spot to disappear. So I'm going to make them a little larger. Because I'm just speaking about the one here. Actually, I don't have to use that thing. I can do it more efficiently that way. And now I'm going to do my dotting thing, because that's really the only way I can make something dark. Here is the line I did make, I just made. I'm going to make it easier. Okay. As you can see, it's much darker now. Okay, I'm going to create some shadow here. Actually, I have to sharpen my tool. Not quite as dark as I would like it to be. Okay, I'm going to cut for a minute so I can sharpen my tool. Okay, so my tool works better now. So I can work on that shadow. Okay, it's not much, but it's something. Now that I have done that, I have to increase that hollow that I did create here. See? Because that's the only way I can imitate the fiber which would be coming from the feather. Of course, I'm not going to make it too tight. Don't want to create something uniform. It is going to be a halo. I think it's okay like that. And this thing here is not a defect. It's the beginning of the tree which is behind. I make enough mistake of my own. I don't need to a thing which may appear like one when they are not. So now I'm going to shade this thing. The shading is pretty uniform there. And I'm going to do a little little more of that. Yeah. I don't want my line to be too close together because otherwise it will give something too dark. So we have to keep them separate. Spray. Okay, now I'm going to use my dotting tool, I'm going to try to leave some white space or whiter space. didn't notice, I'm sure. Sorry. So what was I going to say? Oh yeah, I'm sure that you did not fail to notice that my stippling is not very tight. As I was saying, I want to create something kind of gray, a fairly light gray actually. Need to be a little darker than this, but not as dark as that. So I will do this thing for a while until I get to the tone I want. So maybe I'm just going to cut it off and get back to you when I will be closer to my goal. Okay, once again, so I've moved forward and I did start to do the feather on a wing. I did that because I did not quite understand what was happening on the picture, so I figured that feather would be appropriate. So I did do what you can see, and now I'm going to shade some of them. Actually, I'm going to shade most of them. I did notice that on my picture there's a lot of white spots. So that's what I'm going to try to reproduce. My feathers are not very dark on this part of the bird, so I'm not going to make my stippling too tight. And if I don't like it, I will just go back and make it darker. Okay, I will come back to you later. Okay, it's almost the end of it. Let me show you what I have accomplished. Okay, try a little focusing. And that's the way it looks now. I'm doing the feet and the underbelly of the beast. Okay. Because the underbelly is very, very light, so I'm going to make that part, which is of course the background, a little darker, so you will have some sort of contrast between the two. Of course I cannot just put one line, it will look really weird. So I'm going to take a stippling down. And I need to do a little of it here. Okay. And just a little more there. Okay, I need to do something similar there because my sheet doesn't show enough. I need to do some shading to foot. So I need to do something around which is darker. I think it looks more or less okay. Sliding. Okay, now I can do shading of some sort. Anyway, maybe you have been patient enough. I will come back to you when it's done. I think it's done. Let me show you. We focus, I mean, not focus, but zoom out. Okay, I need to put it a little more in the middle. Let's focus. Okay, so it is. I don't have much to say. Maybe I can zoom in a little more and focus a little. Okay, that's how it looks like. I hope that this demonstration was of some interest and that you may have learned something. And if not, I'm really sorry. Mm, that's all I have to say. Oh, by the way, I did find a new word for bulino. You know, bulino is actually the Italian name for the tool which is used to do the work. And of course, it's just the name of the tool, so I've been thinking about it. And I think now I'm going to call it photorealistic hand engraving. I know it's a mouthful, but at least it's described what people doing that type of work are trying to accomplish. Take care.